The idea of freedom within connection is a concept that seems at first glance to be contradictory. How can one be free and yet remain connected? How can you preserve your individuality while merging your life with another's? These questions are at the heart of our human experience, and their answers lie in a deeper understanding of what it means to love without losing yourself. Freedom, at its essence, is the ability to live authentically, to act in alignment with your values, and to pursue your purpose without unnecessary constraints. Connection, on the other hand, is about belonging. It is the binding of souls through shared experiences, vulnerability, and intimacy. These two forces are not enemies, they are allies. When balanced, they create relationships that are not only enduring, but deeply fulfilling. Consider what happens when connection lacks freedom. It becomes suffocating, a cage disguised as love. The desire to be close transforms into control, and the beautiful individuality of both people begins to erode. Instead of being a partnership, the relationship becomes a fusion, where one or both lose their sense of self. This is not love, it is dependency. And dependency, while it may feel comforting in the short term, cannot sustain a relationship in the long term. On the other side of the spectrum, freedom without connection is equally empty. It is a life lived in isolation, where walls are built so high that no one can climb over them. It is the refusal to let anyone in, the fear of vulnerability masquerading as independence. We are not meant to live this way. Human beings are wired for connection. We need to be seen, heard, and valued by others. To deny this need is to deny a fundamental part of our nature. The challenge then is to find the balance, to create a relationship where freedom and connection coexist, each enhancing the other. And this balance begins with understanding yourself. It begins with the realization that your individuality is not a barrier to connection. It is the foundation of it. You cannot give yourself to another if you do not first know who you are. Know thyself, the ancient wisdom advises. This is not just a philosophical ideal, it is a practical necessity. To know yourself is to understand your values, your boundaries, your desires, and your fears. It is to take responsibility for your own happiness, rather than placing that burden on someone else. And in taking this responsibility, you free yourself to love without expectation, to give without losing. When you enter a relationship as a whole person, something extraordinary happens. The connection you build is not one of dependency, but of choice. You are not with the other person because you need them to complete you. You are with them because they enrich your life. This distinction is critical. Love that is born out of need is fragile. Love that is born out of choice is unshakable. Freedom within connection also requires trust. Trust that the bond you share is strong enough to withstand individuality. Trust that the other person's journey does not threaten your own. Trust that love does not diminish when space is given, it grows. This trust is not blind. It is earned through consistent acts of respect, communication, and integrity. There is a profound beauty in trusting someone enough to let them be themselves, to say, I see you, and I honor the person you are becoming. This kind of love is not possessive. It does not seek to mold or constrain. Instead, it celebrates. It says, your growth is my joy, and your freedom is my gift to you. But trust alone is not enough. Freedom within connection also demands vulnerability. It asks you to open yourself fully, to share your fears, your dreams, and your imperfections. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as weakness, but it is anything but. It is the ultimate act of courage. To be vulnerable is to stand before another unguarded and say, this is me, all of me. This vulnerability is what makes true connection possible. Without it, relationships remain surface level, a dance of facades that never touch the heart. But vulnerability is also what allows freedom to flourish. When you are secure in your connection, when you know that the other person accepts you as you are, you feel free to explore, to grow, to become. Yet, this balance is not static. It requires constant attention, a willingness to adapt and recalibrate. Relationships are dynamic, evolving as the people within them evolve. What worked yesterday may not work tomorrow, and that is okay. Growth is not a threat to love, it is its lifeblood. The key is to grow together, to see each other's evolution not as a divergence, but as a deeper intertwining of paths. Freedom within connection also teaches us about boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges. They are the lines that define where you end and the other begins, allowing both people to feel safe and respected. Without boundaries, freedom becomes chaos and connection becomes smothering. Boundaries are not selfish, they are the foundation of healthy love. There is a paradox here. The more you respect your own boundaries, the more space you create for genuine connection. And the more you respect the other person's boundaries, the more they feel free to share themselves with you. This mutual respect is what allows relationships to thrive. It creates a partnership where both people can be fully themselves while being fully together. In a world that often glorifies extremes, the idea of balancing freedom and connection can feel countercultural. But this balance is not only possible, it is essential. It is what allows relationships to move beyond mere coexistence and into the realm of true partnership. So, how do you achieve this balance? It begins with intention. It begins with the decision to show up not as a half-breed version of yourself, but as your whole authentic self. It begins with the courage to communicate openly, to ask for what you need, and to listen to what the other person needs in return. It begins with the willingness to embrace discomfort, to have hard conversations, to face your fears and grow through them. It also requires grace. Grace for yourself when you stumble and grace for the other person when they do. Because you will stumble. Balancing freedom and connection is not a destination. It is a journey, one that you will walk together, hand in hand. In the end, freedom within connection is not about perfection. It is about presence. It is about choosing to love in a way that liberates, not confines. It is about creating a relationship where both people feel seen, supported, and free to become the best versions of themselves. So, back to ceremony, back to a big room, and back to deep living awareness of, and perhaps that is the greatest gift we can give each other. The freedom to grow, the connection to belong, and the love to make it all worthwhile. This speech combines emotional depth, professional tone, and motivational elements to inspire reflection and action. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments. Here's the speech, tailored to your request. Space to grow and room to love. These are the pillars upon which strong, enduring relationships are built. At first glance, they might appear to be opposites. How can you create space while fostering closeness? How do you allow room for growth without losing the intimacy that brings two people together? But the truth is, they are not opposites at all. They are two sides of the same coin, both essential to the health and vitality of any meaningful connection. The first lesson is this: love does not thrive in confinement. A relationship is not a box you step into, shutting the door on the outside world and limiting the horizons of the people within it. Instead, it is an open field, a vast expanse where two individuals can walk together, exploring the world while supporting each other. When love is healthy, it does not clip wings, it gives them. It does not bind with chains, it weaves a safety net that allows both partners to take risks, to reach higher, to become more. True growth is only possible in an environment of trust. Trust that your partner's journey is not a threat to your own. Trust that their exploration, their learning, their evolution is not pulling them away from you, but enriching the connection you share. This trust is not easy to cultivate. It requires an immense amount of courage. It asks you to face the possibility of change without fear and to embrace the unknown with an open heart. Trust is also the foundation of love, and without it, a relationship cannot survive. To give someone space to grow is in essence to love them unconditionally. It is to say, I see who you are today and I honor the person you are becoming. This kind of love does not demand that the other person stays the same to keep the relationship intact. It does not ask them to shrink or hold back to avoid disrupting the balance. Instead, it celebrates growth as a natural and beautiful part of life, knowing that as long as the foundation of respect and connection remains, growth will only strengthen the bond. Growth, however, is not always comfortable. It often involves struggle, mistakes, and even pain. And when you are close to someone, their struggles can feel like your own. There is a natural instinct to protect the people you love, to shield them from hardship and guide them away from failure. But in doing so, you risk depriving them of the very experiences that foster growth. As difficult as it is, you must allow them to stumble. You must let them make their own mistakes, even when you can see the outcome more clearly than they can. Because growth is not about perfection, it is about resilience. In the same way, room to love means embracing the imperfections of another person. It is about choosing connection over control, even when fear tries to convince you otherwise. Love cannot flourish in an atmosphere of rigidity, where every action is scrutinized and every misstep becomes a point of contention. Love needs room to breathe. It needs forgiveness, understanding, and the willingness to see the bigger picture. To truly love someone is to create a space where they feel safe to be themselves. It is to welcome their quirks, their flaws, and their vulnerabilities with open arms. This does not mean tolerating behavior that is harmful or disrespectful. Boundaries are as vital to love as freedom. But it does mean recognizing that perfection is an illusion and that authenticity is far more valuable. There is a profound beauty in watching someone you love grow. It is a privilege to witness their journey, to cheer them on as they reach for their dreams, and to stand beside them through their trials. But this beauty is only visible when you release the need to control the outcome. When you stop trying to direct their path and instead focus on walking alongside them, you create a partnership that is both supportive and liberating. It is also important to recognize that growth and love are not linear processes. There will be times when you feel perfectly in sync and times when the distance between you feels insurmountable. This is normal. Relationships, like people, go through seasons. There are moments of flourishing and moments of dormancy, times of closeness and times of solitude. What matters is your willingness to weather these seasons together, to adapt and adjust as needed, and to remain committed to the journey. Giving space to grow and room to love also requires humility. It asks you to set aside your ego, to let go of the belief that you know what is best for someone else. It is tempting to think that your perspective is the correct one, that your way of approaching life is the most effective or meaningful. But every person's journey is unique, shaped by their own experiences, dreams, and challenges. To truly support someone's growth, you must honor their individuality, even when it diverges from your own understanding. At the same time, you must not lose yourself in the process. Giving space to grow does not mean sacrificing your own needs or suppressing your own desires. Room to love must be mutual, a shared commitment to creating a relationship that uplifts and empowers both partners. This balance is not always easy to achieve, but it is essential. A relationship cannot thrive if one person is constantly giving while the other takes. Both people must feel seen, valued, and supported in their growth. Love is not a finite resource. It does not diminish when shared. It multiplies. The more you give, the more you receive. But this giving must come from a place of abundance, not scarcity. It must be rooted in a strong sense of self, in the knowledge that you are complete and worthy on your own. Only then can you give freely, without expectation or resentment. And perhaps that is the greatest paradox of love. The more you allow freedom, the closer you become. When both people feel free to grow and explore, when both feel trusted and valued for who they are, the relationship becomes a sanctuary rather than a cage. It becomes a place of infinite possibility, where love and growth feed into each other, creating a cycle of ever-deepening connection.